Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this Monday live Apologia Center clash showdown with my partner in crime. Or can we say that?
Whoa, easy.
Come on now.
Come on. I am not a criminal, everyone. I have a clean record.
Forgive me, Donald Trump. Please don't come after me.
Clean record.
I'm okay. I'm okay. You know what I love about America? And I'll tell you where I got this from. The freedom. And I know a lot of people will say, like, America doesn't have freedom and all this other nonsense, right? Here's what the cool thing is. We can get on YouTube and make fun of the president of the United States and not be worried that we're going to be sent to some concentration camp somewhere. That's the cool thing about America. Or maybe we can't anymore. I don't know, Tom. Things are changing, it seems like.
Who knows?
Who knows? Tom, the first college course I ever took was at a community college. And I still remember the professor's name. I just don't want to say it. And it was a political science course. This guy, first day of class. This is when George Bush was president, you know, back in the day. First term. And he said America has quite a bit of freedom. And this guy was a liberal. Okay, maybe like a classical liberal sort of guy. He got up on the podium and he did what he called his George Bush is an idiot dance, and just did a dance and sang George Bush is an idiot and all this stuff. And he got down and said, "That's what's awesome about America. I don't have to be worried in doing that."
Yeah, you can be silly and right at the same time.
He also told everybody, does the Constitution of the United States teach that there's a separation between church and state? And all the kids were like, yeah, of course it does. And he was like, cool. The Constitution is on this page in your textbook. Open it up and show me where it is.
Ooh.
And everyone's like struggling through it and trying to find it, and they can't. And he goes, you know why you guys can't find it? Because it ain't there. And so he was pretty fair as a professor. And I really enjoyed being in that class. It's been memorable. There's a number of things I've used over the years that I've learned in that class. So as folks are coming in, drop a comment, say hello, say what's going on. Tell us where you're from. Where you from? We only have one like because the poll I put up is not have you hit the like button, is do you think Tomic is wrong? No, I do think Trump is right. And people are forgetting to hit the like button, I guess. It helps you guys hit the like button as we're going to get into this. And you're going to see, look, if Tom and I get a little passionate here in this conversation, afterwards, we're still going to hang out. We're still going to be friends. You're going to see him back on the channel. Nothing about our relationship. My voice is just doing funky stuff.
Don't cry, man. It's okay.
I love you, man.
Stop trying to find your way out of this.
Go ahead, talk before I...
Stop trying to find excuses. What he was trying to say is we're still going to be cool after this. I'll help him remove his pride flags from his house after June is done. We'll still do all of that, okay?
I'm dead.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, these are fun.
You know, my do not tread on me flag is not flying right now, so
I'll help you put that one on, brother.
I do have an American flag flying right now, but I've gone between the do not tread on me and the American flag. Look, on a serious note, Christians are going to disagree on this issue, and we wanted to speak about that well-rounded, God-fearing, good biblical Christians will most likely disagree on this issue. They might not disagree on the issue, but maybe they might disagree on implementation. Most of the time, Tom, in political discourse, tell me if I'm wrong about this. You pay more attention to politics than I do, even though I probably have a better political philosophy. But I didn't get a reaction from that. Most of the time, people are agreeing on the issue at hand. What they're disagreeing about is how to solve it.
Yeah.
What's the solution in regards to that? Like, for example, like if you go to a right-wing MAGA, Republican, and you say, hey, do you think we should take care of the poor? You're probably not going to come across a lot of people who are going to be like, no, let the poor starve and die. You're going to come across a lot of well-rounded, sensible individuals saying, yeah, of course we should take care of the poor. And if you go all the way to the woke, Antifa, whatever, and you say, hey, should we take care of the poor? They're probably going to say, yeah, we should take care of the poor. The question really comes down to how do we take care of the poor? What's our responsibility? What's the government's responsibility? How are we going to accomplish these things? So, I guess we'll jump into that as we have a conversation. Amber is here. Hi, Amber. Amber's from Portland. Do not judge her because she's from Portland, I guess. Sorry, guys. There's probably going to be a lot of funny comments thrown around here.
Amber, are you from Chaz by chance?
I'm just telling you guys to expect lightheartedness on this serious issue as well. Peter Wesson, thank you very much for the $9.99 super chat. Look at that. Money's already coming in, bro. Money's already coming in. There is the community leaderboard, remember, as always. And yeah. So take it away, Tom. Tell me what your problem here is.
My problem is
maybe I should
LA summers are too hot, man. That's my problem.
True. That's true. We're sitting
as
he's sitting here in the cool of day, I guess.
It's actually very nice here today. By the
right
way.
Now it is. Did you know I found that there was a recall on my air conditioning unit?
Why?
So basically the water is not draining. The condensation it creates, it hasn't been draining, and it hasn't been doing that for mine. So we got a recall the other day. They're like, you either get a refund, full refund, but then they've taken it off the market. Oof. I can't get the quiet thing. But another thing they sent was they'll send out a technician to fix it. So I applied for it. There potentially is mold building in there.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you're going to get sick.
That's why your opinions have gotten so cuckoo recently.
It's the mold. Blame the mold.
Oh, man. I know what I'm talking about. Guys, that explains everything. He's in here all the time, and there's mold in here. That might be why I've been having. Oh man, I've been struggling with my voice. You know. Give it a few more weeks, and you'll go full liberal on us here. Anyways, we didn't prepare. Honestly, I've
zero preparation.
I was sick for a couple weeks, so I was trying to not even look at the news. To be honest with you, like when I saw the Elon Musk and Trump spat and all that kind of stuff, I was trying to stay.
You mean that old married couple fight that they were having on the internet, like a bunch of teenagers?
My wife texted me. She's like, "So who are we gonna be with on the weekdays, and who are we gonna be with on the weekends?" Like, the dads are splitting up. But so I was trying to stay away from kind of. Let me tell you why. So political discourse amps me up. It's like an adrenaline rush for me. It's one of those things. We all have that, by the way. Yours can be like soccer or Lord of the Rings or whatever. Or is it Lord of the Rings? Like movies and stuff like that, intense movies.
Sure.
But politics does.
Politics pumps me up too. I'm trying to be more sensible.
Yeah, so
some of you guys, you're not as rational.
So I was trying to stay away from it, and then I opened my Twitter. Like I finally had the courage to open it up, and I saw things burning, and Los Angeles was trending with 1.29 million reposts and stuff like that. So I was like, oh no, like something's gone on. And then I checked, and I saw, oh my goodness, can't believe it. Donald Trump is actually doing what we voted for him to do. Can you believe it? We're not used to that. I feel like as Americans, we're like, oh yeah, the guy is saying, I'm gonna pro tariffs, I'm gonna deport illegal immigrants, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and then when he does it, we're all like, oh my God, he's doing what he said he was gonna do. So that's kind of where I am today. I'm trying to catch up on the news, see what's going on. But it's an interesting topic, man. And especially when we bring it into this context with apologetics, our faith, and all that stuff.
So I want to explain to people why we're actually talking about this. It's not just because it's on the news and all that stuff. And the reason why I titled the stream what the title is, which is When the Right Loses Its Faith, is because we can talk about politics ungrounded, let me put it that way. And if it is without any kind of foundation and grounds, then it just becomes opinions of people. That's partly why in a lot of political discourse, you're going to see people bringing the Bible in, even people who don't really believe this stuff, because it brings a certain kind of foundation to it. It brings a certain kind of understanding as to like, hey, how should we treat our neighbor? You know, that's what politics is how are we as a society treating our neighbors? Now, that's not a very, thorough definition of what politics is, but we live in society, and we've essentially decided that our society is going to be this kind of a society. Say in the United States, we have a representative republic, and so it has everything to do with our neighbors, everything to do with our neighbors. So Jesus said, love God with all your heart, mind, strength, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. And we want to do that to the best of our abilities. And there's a very interesting question that obviously comes to the surface. And it was asked of Jesus a very long time ago, and it's still being asked. And that question is, who is my neighbor? Now, before we answer that question, you should hit the like button, because we have a number of people in here who haven't hit the like button. So, look, I can come at you really, really strong here, Tom. In regards to who is our neighbor. Is the immigrant not our neighbor? Let me rephrase this. Is the illegal immigrant not your neighbor?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Yeah, they would be my neighbor.
They are.
Of course they are.
Yeah, and so the question comes down to how do we...
So is my neighbor that potentially keys my car because he's pissed off that I'm parked in his parking spot. That's also my neighbor.
Yeah, you shouldn't park in his parking spot.
Well, I'm just saying. Neighbors can do unneighborly things.
Yeah, correct. Yes. But it's interesting that when Jesus gave this parable, he didn't really focus on what the other neighbor is doing. He focused on what you are doing as a neighbor. Now, all this stuff needs to be counterbalanced in various ways, because there's wisdom that goes into it. There's legality that goes into it. There's just like basic humanity that goes into it.
Yes.
I let me just say something like this. Like, if you know someone who is an illegal immigrant, you don't refrain from giving them water to drink because...
No, of course not.
When they're thirsty. Like, I know, but this is the sort of caricatures that get painted by one side towards the other. And then maybe a caricature that gets painted from the other side is, hey, who cares about our country? Let it burn, right? And clearly there's people out there who really want to burn. Literally, in Los Angeles, there's people burning cars. I was looking at something last night, just rows of cars just burning. I'm like, what's the point of this? Like, where is this going to get us? And that stuff gets me a bit conspiratorial, Tom. I don't think they're normal people. I don't think those are average people.
Oh, you think they're like hired?
I think they're paid.
They're paid? Oh,
yeah.
I don't doubt that at all.
I think they're paid by mischievous individuals to cause havoc and chaos in our society.
Oh, I don't doubt that at all. But I do believe there's a lot of people that believe that ideology. And it's so interesting. It's crazy to me that we have these like separate camps, like left, right, in America at least. And it differs when you go to different countries like Europe and places like that. But it's weird to me that even on the most common sense issues, now I wouldn't necessarily say these deportations are one of those that would be like the most obvious. But even in the most obvious cases, once one team picks that side, the other team is picking the other side. And that's insanity to me. That's why I like these kind of conversations, because like you said before we even started, there's a lot of ways to nuance these, and there's a lot of positions Christians can take.
Let's start here. Let's start here. I think Jesse asked a good question. He said, what about obeying the law? Let's start with the legality of the matter. But what we'll do is, let me just outline this in my head and write it down, because then I'm going to forget it. Okay, we're going to do legality first. Okay. We will do faith. But when I say faith, I'm talking about like what the Bible teaches on subjects like this. So biblical stories, biblical teachings, principles we can gather when it comes to treating, let's say, the way you treat aliens in the land. For folks who know the Bible, know kind of where I'm going with that.
So aliens are in the Bible.
Yes. Yes. There are aliens in the Bible and illegal aliens in our society. But there aren't illegal aliens in the Bible.
I was actually going to start with a claim and then have you...
you want to debate me?
No. Just a general
Weren't
claim.
you the one telling me to go debate people the other day?
Yes, and you chose me. How lucky am I? So this is my claim. Okay, I wrote this down. Deportations, when done justly and lawfully, is not unchristian. Scripture calls us to uphold the law, Romans 13, and seek justice, Micah 6:8, while also showing compassion. A nation must balance mercy with order to love its neighbor well. That's my claim. And specifically to these kind of deportations, by the way. Like even the ones that seem very insensitive if you're just looking at it outright. Like I'm not talking about some guy goes to court and he goes through the process and they're like, you did this and you did that and this and that, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes to his fourth court case and then they eventually go like, all right, man, like you got to go. I'm not even talking about those. I'm talking about if you're in the country illegally, okay, it's not unchristian for that country to go and remove you without, I wouldn't say without due process, like, even though I could make the argument that it could be without due process, but there should be some general due process. Like they should give the person the right to present their documentations to show how they're here. Maybe there's a misunderstanding, but I don't think due process in the sense of every single person should go through an entire court trial with a jury and a judge and an immigration attorney, because then that can take forever. Yeah. So I am making the more extreme claim here that when I say deportations, I mean any kind of deportations, not the ones done in kind of like a lengthy manner.
Yeah. Let me make a statement about a comment that came in, and I'll respond to that. Amber saying these conversations are very different when you and your family are directly impacted. Yes, but that shouldn't be the argument we lead with. Another thing is that assuming somehow you're not assuming this, but let people not assume to think that we don't know people very close that aren't impacted by these things. Okay, even just in ministry, like I know a guy who specifically is terrified with these things because he was born and raised in the United States and his parents were illegal in the United States, and he's like in his 20s, and there's all sorts of issues with the legality of that and all that stuff. So, but again, this is, Amber, I don't like this because people give arguments like against abortion like this, like you're not a woman, you can't have or you're not impacted by X, Y, and Z, so you shouldn't have an opinion. I agree with you. I think they're very, you're more emotionally invested in regards to that. But that's partly why I want to talk about the legality. Okay, the United States so I would generally agree with your statement. I'm not disagreeing with your statement. I think your statement is well articulated. Partly because the United States has a way for people to legally immigrate into the country, number one. So my family, Tom, it took us 10 years to come to the United States. My family applied to come to the United States as refugees when Armenia was under communist rule, and we ended up here 5 years after communism fell. Right, so it depends where communism fell, because that's not always the same date. So there's a legal way people can come to the United States. There is another way where it's legal, but you're crossing the border and it's not like coming in, like you're not flying into the country. You essentially show up to the border and you turn yourself in and you seek asylum in the United States. And then they will take you, they'll process you, they release you into the country, and then you go through essentially making an argument as to why you should live in the United States.
Yes.
Correct? And then there's obviously the third way where people cross over the border without anybody knowing they're in the country.
And by the way, just to put some context to that third point you made, 10 million of those people did that in the 4 years Joe Biden was president.
Yeah. So
and those are like conservative numbers. 10 million of those, that third category. 10 million guys.
So I'm not going to fact check you on that. I'm just going to take your word for it. So just so people understand why this conversation is necessary and important, and it's very complicated. The United States legally every year, and people can correct me if I'm wrong on my numbers here, the United States every single year legally accepts 1 million why am I forgetting the word? Immigrants. I'm thinking refugees. I was like, no. The United States legally accepts 1 million a year. So if I'm right on my 1 million number, in 4 years, we got 10 years worth of people coming into the country from the third category. That's not even considering all the other categories. The 4 million added to that legally that would have been accepted. And then a bunch of people that would have been accepted, trying to get into the country as legal asylum seekers, which would take that number up to, I don't know, man, 16 to like 20 million or something like that. Which you guys understand why there would be pressure on the kind of structure of the country. And again, these are wise things we need to think about as to like whether you can take care of people. Here's an interesting thing that this just came to my mind. Quite often when I talk to people about having a lot of kids, especially people that tend to be more left-leaning, they'll tell me things like, how do you take care of them? Do you have enough time and resources and rooms and stuff like that? I mean, you can't even adopt a child unless you meet like all these criteria. The adoption is very difficult in regards to what the state deems fit for a family. I mean, like an actual house, in order for you to adopt a child. Yet, I don't see why we don't ask questions of, hey, can we actually afford this as a country and a society in regards to the amount of people we're taking in? So, let me say this because it's important. I'm not an open borders person. Like, I know you know that, Tom, even though you might be doubting it or something like that. I don't know, recently. But for the audience's sake, I don't think we should just have open borders and just accept anyone who comes into the country. I actually think the laws we have on the books are pretty decent. Do you agree with that, or do you think that stuff needs to be changed?
It depends, because I see some like people claiming that, for example, if you want to come from Mexico or something like that, it could take 10 years compared to like apparently the US makes it difficult for some areas. But again, that is again because there's a huge influx of migrants coming from those areas. So this is another argument. Another claim would be that illegal immigration makes it harder for legal immigrants of that country to come to the United States.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, generally speaking, there are laws. Problem is we don't follow them. And then there's the correction that comes in. And when the correction comes in, everyone's like, it's so evil. How could they do this? How could they send all these people back? Well, it's like because a lawless president for 4 years allowed all those people to come in. And so now a president who upholds the law has to send them all back.
So is this more of a failure of leadership in the sense of like you can make a mess for the person coming after you in leadership, and then now when that person has to deal with it, they just look like a bad guy?
Yeah, for sure.
Not necessarily. By the way, I will get to why I have issues with the way some of this stuff's happening. But I think that's reasonable, guys. For example, let's just suppose you're running a company or a CEO or something like that, and then there's a guy before you who just makes a mess of all the finances and steals and does this and does that, and then you come in there and you're like, guys, we can't afford this. We got to let go 50% of our workforce. And now they're like, oh man, we can't. This guy's so bad. He came in there and fired 50% of the workforce and all this stuff. And it's like, well, I didn't make this mess. This other guy did.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of cleaning it up, and it's to such a bad place where it's necessary for me to do this.
See, this is. I'll start the hot topic here, because I think the left takes. There's a book called Toxic Empathy. You guys should check that book out. It's by Ali Beth Stuckey. She does these political podcasts. She's a believer, incredible woman, and it talks about the kind of toxic empathy that the left uses in order to push these ideologies upon us. And the toxic empathy makes people who are actually empathetic towards the suffering, like Christians and stuff, seem like they're evil people. So when you use toxic empathy, Art, it's very easy to take on those positions and then not have to deal with the ramifications or the consequences, right? So if I'm okay with pumping the government with money to go into social welfare programs, well, great. If I'm into bringing as many illegal immigrants into the country as possible, well, great. If I'm into allowing people to do whatever they want with their bodies, be whatever you want to be, undress in public, have these rallies, okay, great. So when you take those positions of, like, I would say, lawlessness and leniency on every single topic, it's very easy to come out as empathetic, but then somebody's got to come after you and deal with the consequences. And the person who deals with the consequences of those issues is the person that looks bad. Even if you take something that's not a social issue, like a fiscal policy, right? The left loves to spend, even though recent times the right also likes to spend. So spend. The country is now engulfed, like completely like taken over by spending. And then you have some guy coming and saying, we got to cut some stuff. And they're like, what are you going to cut? Children's lunches? Yeah. You're going to cut the old people going to the doctor? You're going to cut. It's like, yeah, some of it, because we've overspent on this stuff.
Yeah, so, let's just put this in a household kind of example, because I think it makes sense. Like, if we overspent as a family and you cut back and you're like, hey guys, we can't be going out every other week, or sorry, like every other day and eating, this much meals, because we got to eat at home. It's cheaper. And we're not going to eat like fancy schmancy steaks even at home. And then your kids are like, what? No, like, we love going out and eating. And it's like, well, yeah, that's great, but we got to be able to afford it. Now, there's a question that was asked. I think that's important. Maybe you can address it. When we're talking about affording something, what are we affording?
Who asked that question, by the way?
Buddy asked that question. He said, afford what?
I'm not understanding to what that question is being asked.
So when we were talking about like all these the whatever 16 million people coming in here or whatever like that, and it becomes a kind of pressure on the system. Yes. What are we talking about when it comes to the finances?
So a lot of illegal immigrants that come into specifically California, because that's where I'm from, and those are the policies I know best. They're able to apply for government income subsidies, welfare, and all these kind of stuff. That now you could make the argument that, like, whatever, a welfare is not needed by a, let's say, person who's being paid a wage or has been here for a long time. But that's the whole point. It's that our government has to subsidize these things. So my tax dollars, his tax dollars, whoever's paying taxes, these programs are created, and they're huge. They're large programs. They take a lot of money. And instead of focusing on things like homelessness in our streets, crime-ridden neighborhoods, instead of focusing on things like the drug epidemic that's like devouring the United States, it's that income is put into places like illegal immigration, where our tax dollars are funding these stuff, and it's costing the U.S. taxpayer heavily. And I don't think that's the Christian thing to do. Like when I see videos of people like hunched on the street dying, like overdosing from heroin and fentanyl and that kind of stuff, I'm like, I
don't have to see videos of that. I've seen it live.
And then people say, well, America is large enough to do both. But they don't do both because one is politically beneficial. One makes more political sense. Like bring people in, get them on your side. Like think about it, guys. Like why is one side like, yeah, bring all of them in, bring them all in. We'll give them everything they want. It like you can put two and two together. So one is politically beneficial. The other one.
By the way, I have an argument for my position. I have an argument why it politically is more advantageous to do what I think the right should do.
Well,
it's a political argument I have, but
that's my response as far as affordability goes.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of stuff that goes into that. I mean, the United States used to take immigrants as they would come in. There was really no immigration policy. If you could make it here, you could come into the country, right, through Ellis Island and all that stuff. But the other issue was that the United States had no social welfare programs. So if somebody came in, they came in with whatever they had. And most people just came in with the clothes on their back. And where it's very different now. It's very, very different when people come in. We do have social welfare, and I'm not against social welfare programs. I actually think it's biblical to have what I would call a social safety net for folks. Read your thing again.
Oh, my claim. Let me get that. My claim was that deportation, when done justly and lawfully, is not unchristian. Scripture calls us to uphold the law, Romans 13, seek justice, Micah 6:8, while also showing compassion. A nation must balance mercy with order to love its neighbor well.
Yeah, so here's where I think we might run into some trouble when we're thinking about this. Again, guys, remember, we're trying to help folks think about these things clearly. Tom and I have disagreements on a number of things, but we definitely want to think about this stuff clearly and biblically. There's a big difference when we're talking about what the responsibilities of a nation are versus what the responsibilities of individuals are. Those things don't always correlate with one another. So there might be things that you're called to do as an individual, but you might not be called to do as a nation. I'll give you a couple of examples. For example, you as an individual, legally speaking, shouldn't take the law into your hands and bring about revenge.
Yes.
But you as a nation, in defense of your people and your nation, because it's a part of your duty as a nation, have the right to do that. If somebody attacks you, you can go attack them back. Okay, that's sort of, as a matter of fact, Romans 13 got thrown around. You mentioned it, and then Reverend Nick Quint mentioned it in the chat as well. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities. For there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed. And those who resist will incur judgment. Now, you got to be very careful about this stuff. Because, for example, why did the United States founders resist the British government? It's not like everything the government does. And there's a whole political philosophy and conversation that ought to be had about this. This is partly why the founding documents of the United States say in the due course of human events, there comes a time essentially where it's the people's duty to rebel against tyranny. And then he goes on to talk about, for rulers are not a terror for good conduct, but for bad. And if you're doing good, you shouldn't have any fear. But if you're doing wrong stuff, you should fear because the government is going to judge you. That's the job. Part of the job of the government is to judge you. Okay, is to wield a sword. Where I think as individuals, that's essentially not in our right. And one of the things that I see people out of the compassion, out of good compassion, out of the goodness of their heart, they want to do good as individuals. But what they're not doing is thinking about what the responsibilities of government is. And it's important to put those things in the right places if you want to think about this clearly.
Or brother, the other individuals affected, right? So we had one guy that was, let's say, wrongfully deported into El Salvador, even though he was an illegal immigrant. I forgot his name, but he was in the news a few weeks ago. They brought him back. But there was like national protest over that, right? But you had bunch of people being killed by illegal immigrants over the last few years, and there was no national outrage over that. So like there's a hypocrisy in that. Who's your neighbor? Like is your neighbor just the guy who's coming in that you're is the least of these the person who's coming in trying to seek a better life in America? Or can the least of these be if a bad person is coming from that country illegally and then ends up killing one of your citizens, like a little girl, and raping her, right? Yeah. Is that not the least of these?
Correct.
Art, can I quickly respond to Buddy's comment? And I know Buddy's been on your channel a lot. An overwhelming majority of our budget goes to fund war, but the Pentagon budget never gets cut. Rather, we focus on the continued marginalization of the least of these. That's just dishonest. Our military budget is not even close to being the majority. It's like 10 to 13% at best. The majority of our budget in the United States goes to social welfare programs, Medicare, Medicaid, and just go down the line of those welfare programs or social kind of. So it's not true. It's not true that we're spending the overwhelming majority of our budget to fund war. It's the opposite. So if we were to attack our budget issues, it wouldn't start with the military. Like that's not where you would want to go first. You would want to go first to the waste and stuff in the social programs. And then obviously like the military and over militarization and all that kind of stuff is part of it. I agree. But that's not where I'm starting.
So here's what ChatGPT said. I just asked ChatGPT, what's the majority of the budget of the United States? This is fiscal year 2024. Mandatory spending, about 63% of the budget is Social Security, 21%, Medicare, 14%, Medicaid, ACA subsidies, and other health programs, 13%, other mandatory programs, including programs like food stamps, unemployment insurance, federal employee retirement, 15%. Discretionary spending, about 27% of the budget. Defense is 13 to 15%. Non-defense discretionary is 12 to 14. I'm guessing that non-defense discretionary there is stuff they can tell us about. Like weapons they're working on that they can't tell us. You can't come out and be like, hey, we're working on this weapon. It's just that they're given essentially some, and then 10% of it is interest on debt. Now, that's a simple kind of overview of things. In regards to the budget, I'm not interested in political talking points, you guys. I really am not. In regards to the chat, I want to know what it's going to look like for me as a Christian who lives in the United States to live first and foremost committed to King Jesus, and secondly to the United States, the laws in this country. Tom, do you agree? Do you disagree with anything I just said?
No.
Okay. So we're on the same page when it comes to allegiance to Jesus comes number one, first and foremost. There's no question about that. We are uncompromising about it. I don't care who the president is. I don't care who the representatives are. I don't care who the senators are. It doesn't matter. If the United States lost its mind overnight, my commitment to King Jesus is not going to waver. Neither is Tom's. We are not, our first allegiance is not to the United States. Our first allegiance is to Jesus and his kingdom. His kingdom is the one expanding and growing and will fill the earth. Plain and simple. And if people in the United States want to come together as a society and align their own kingdom to the kingdom of Jesus, then that's fine. I'm all good with that. So there's the two categories we just talked about, okay? Personal kind of responsibilities and the personal sort of stuff that we do as individual people versus stuff that the government does. We've talked about legality. There's things that are legal. There are legal ways to come into the United States, and then there are illegal ways to come into the United States. And I go, one of the talking points, and I hear, what's the border czar's name?
Tom Holman.
Yeah. So one of the things I keep hearing him say is, well, they came into the country and they broke the law, and that's an offense. And he gives his quotation and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, we get it. We get people broke the law, right? You can always justify, I think, this might get me in trouble. You can always justify the breaking of a law for certain, in certain circumstances where, know what I'm saying? It's justified. It's still breaking the law, but it's justified. Right? Do you understand what I'm talking about?
Yes, I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, so like if you're dying and let's just say, I don't know, you haven't had any water to drink for a number of days, you're dying of dehydration and stuff like that, and you walk into a store and you steal a bottle of water and you drink it. I would say that would be justified stealing. If people actually found out what's going on, they'd be like, oh, yeah, like we would have given you this water anyways. Right? Let's just say, generally speaking. There could be cases. Now, I'm not saying these are all the cases. I'm just saying there could be some cases for whatever reason that we might not know. And I can't give you direct examples of. People are sort of forced to break the law. So the passage that I keep thinking about is something where I think it's in Proverbs, so I'm not mistaken, where he says something like, God, don't make me rich enough where I forget you, but poor enough where I would have to like steal to eat. You remember that passage? Like this understanding of, not every society has a middle class like the United States. Even the United States middle class has been shrinking, right? And because there's such a difference between the rich and the poor in some societies and countries, it could be the case where people are sort of forced to break the law to find a better way of living in the United States. Again, I'm talking like normal average people in other countries who just desperately want to get to the United States so that there could be some hope for their future. Is there a place within the like kind of legal conversation to say we understand those people?
I would say yes, but the mandate given to how to control that is given to the people who are citizens of the country. And again, you're talking as a nation. So for example, the example you gave, if a guy was dying of thirst and he went into a liquor store and he took a smart water, maybe took two of them because they're always 2 for $4, took 2 of them, didn't pay for it, drank water, boom, the cops come, they're like, I sound like PBD right now. My brother always makes fun of PBD when he gives these kind of examples. The cops come and they go like, whatever, you're going to jail because you stole this water, which just fell out. Okay. So he goes to jail. A jury looks at him and says, you know what? We don't think this is a big deal. Like, we think the guy was thirsty, didn't really cause any damage to society, shouldn't do it. Maybe reprimand him and like, hey, if you're thirsty, go ask for water next time instead of stealing it. Maybe someone will give it to you. But that's the response. The response is they decide they're not going to press charges. Who would? That's insane. But the U.S. citizens, okay, the United States of America, have seen enough repercussions from illegal immigration in our country where as a jury, okay, as a nation, as a people, have come and said, we don't want this anymore. Like, we want someone to take care of the situation because we've seen enough resources go to these kind of things. We've seen enough Americans struggling that can't find resources. And we just don't want our country infiltrated in that way when we're not able to take care of simple things for our own citizens, people who have the right to be here.
Okay,
right?
so you're talking about recent immigration. And
of course.
I'm cool. We can talk about that. But there's people who've been in this country for 20, 30 years that came into this country illegally. Like, let me just put it this way. If somebody came here illegally 2 years ago, they haven't built a life for themselves in such a way where if they were to be deported, it would be like insane.
Yeah, but brother, you wouldn't make that argument with anything else. Like, you wouldn't
No,
say
no.
a guy who murdered someone and got away with it, then started a really good life and had a nice family, lived a good life. Then 40 years later, the law comes back to him and he goes like, man, but I'm not that same person. I have a family, I have daughters,
Yeah,
they
we
go
have
to school. Like,
there are statutes of limitations.
no,
And stuff
I understand,
like that.
but I'm saying for certain things there aren't, like
I know,
murdering someone.
but it doesn't fit. I don't think these are apples to apples. Your comparison in regards to like, yeah, I get it.
No, but
So-
legally they are. Legally they are.
I know, but
Yeah.
but the law is stupid, right? The law is blind. I'm dead serious. It's supposed to be.
Mm.
Tom, that's the cool thing about the law. It's that it's blind, right?
Yeah.
It's not gonna look at it and go, oh, this and that. But it's individuals who are putting into practice the law. And even when it comes to the Bible. So I'll give you an example. The law in the Bible says if you commit adultery, you die. Old
Yes.
Testament, right? How come King David commits adultery and doesn't die? And he commits murder. It's the law.
Because God is merciful. For
Okay,
sure.
so
Yes.
if God has the prerogative to apply his law in like he's not always,
Mhm.
let me rephrase this. God has the right to always put the law into practice no matter what.
Yes.
But he doesn't always do that. That's what we call mercy and grace. Right? That gives me a principle in which we can have laws and respect the law and honor the law, but also have an understanding within the law
Mhm.
and not always apply it. Now you gave a really good example of the guy with the water. He said, hey, the jury can say, no, we're not going to apply the law on this individual. We get his situation. And so therefore he's fine. It's cool. And I feel like maybe my issue with some of the stuff I've been seeing is people are acting in ways where they're just being like all about the law as though nothing else matters. Like, I'm not necessarily against the United States. So initially when these raids started happening, they were going after people who've done like heinous crimes or whatever like that. Right?
Yeah.
That was the whole kind of argument and start of it. And it's like, cool. You've come into this country and you've become a menace to society. Yeah, you should be sent back. I don't think you should be in jails where we're just taking care of you perpetually. You've come into this country illegally and then you've become a menace to society. We don't want you here. I'm 100% in favor of that. But I'm talking about people who aren't menaces to society. Yes, they've come into the country illegally. Yes, the law says what it says, and the law has the complete right to punish them for what they've done. But also, we have this aspect of actually applying that and saying they're not menaces to society. They're hardworking people who just want a better life. They've established a life for themselves. Can we not make it in such a way where it's beneficial to everyone? That's my argument. I mean, you made your claim. Like, my claim would be, I actually think there is a way to fix this issue. And I'm not coming up with it. It's not my thing. Ted Cruz proposed this a number of years ago. And here's what Ted Cruz's proposal was. I'm sure you're familiar with it. I don't know if the audience is or not. But essentially, it was the United States takes 1 million immigrants a year. Nobody's fact checked me on that. I'm right on the million, right?
Yeah, it's close.
Yeah. So he basically said, cut it in half. Don't take 1 million people in. Take 500,000 in a year. And then we have this many illegal people in the country that we know of, right? He said, well, let's map out a plan, say in 10 years, and we legalize 500,000 of them every year for the next 10 years or whatever. And I think the government can do that. And I think the government rightly can have a criteria that in order for you to be a part of that kind of quick-paced legalization process, say you start people who've been here the longest. Okay? And they haven't broken the law. They haven't like they've just worked, whatever. When I say break the law, you guys, I hope you understand what I mean. I mean like heinous crimes and stuff like that. Okay, and you just legalize them, and this is what I think it'll be a political victory as well, because I think if you do that to a large population, they're generally going to end up voting for you because of the gift you gave them. You could have sent them back and you didn't. So I think it's wise in a political way also. And it sort of solves the issue. The United States is not obligated to take whatever, the million immigrants they have to every year. They don't have to do that. No country has to do that. And if you already have a bunch of people in your country, maybe we can even argue based on the whole Good Samaritan kind of principle of the story, is my neighbor is the person who's near me, who's like in my nearest vicinity or something like that, right? So there's two principles here, you guys, that I think we should focus on. One is being like when Jesus talks about who is your neighbor, and he gives the story about the Good Samaritan. The other one is there's a principle in the New Testament established that we start caring for people, and we started from the perspective of the household of faith first. Right? Now, this is Christian communities taking care of each other. And so I would develop this kind of a principle. Your moral responsibilities initially are to those who are closest to you. And I mean that in the, like location-wise, right? Geographically, those people who live around you. And then they kind of go out to the furthest. You still have a moral responsibility to those who are furthest out. Okay? But those who are closest to you and most in need, care for them. But again, there's wisdom that goes into this. Why are they most in need? Like, I have very little compassion when I see like a 24-year-old begging on the street. Like, I actually think the biblical authors would just rebuke people like that. And so you're lazy, get up and go get a job. As a matter of fact, the New Testament does tell people this. It tells women who are young and widows, says, don't sit around and just talk nonsense, go get married. Okay? There's principles of if you don't work and contribute to the community, you shouldn't eat. These are all biblical principles, and they exist. And I think the government can come up with a list like that and say, look, you got to meet this, and that, and then we'll put you in this quick, over the next 6 months, you're going to become, they don't have to become citizens. That's the other thing. It took me and my family a very long time to become citizens. We came to this country legally, but it took us like 4 or 5 years to get our green cards, and it took another however long that was to get our citizenships. So all you need to do is just legalize them, where they become legal residents, and then they can go through the process of getting their green card and becoming citizens. But at least they can be legal. And I think it's the most common sense way to deal with this issue.
Yeah, I mean, when you go into policy, that there's too many things there that can be spoken of, debated. I don't think I don't think your first act in entering a country should be to commit a crime, and I see that initial entering of the country as a crime. Again, because we're not so when we're talking about illegal immigrations, it's illegal immigrants, it's a good distinction to make, Art, that I'm not talking about the people who are literally walking up to the border and seeking asylum. That's a different category. We're talking about the people that are just like running into the country without that process. Asylum is a legal process. Yeah. So if you say someone's struggling in their country, or by the way, and I the reason I don't buy much of that is because a lot of these illegal immigrants are coming from, let's be honest, they're coming from the south of our border, but they're coming from countries that are not primarily Mexico, but they're crossing,
or south of the border.
Yeah,
like even in Central or South America.
Yes. So they're coming up to Mexico where they could seek asylum, and they're skipping that and seeking asylum in the United States. So again, if it's just about asylum, there's other places to seek asylum.
There's other countries.
So there's other countries, primarily Mexico being one of them, which was where that remain in Mexico policy came. But outside of that, it's that you know how difficult it would be for the U.S. government or our court system or our judges, after influx of 10 million immigrants, to now go and one by one review every case. What's your name? Where are you from? Do you have an illegal? Maybe they haven't committed a crime in the United States in the last 6 months, year, 2 years they've been here, but maybe they committed a bunch of crimes in the country they're from.
Yeah.
Right. So like, how do you say, hey, as a Christian, okay, because that's what we are, as a Christian, I want to look at these cases. I want to show mercy on a case-by-case basis. Oh, but there's 10 million of them over the last 4 years. So let me go one by one. This court, this judge, this court, resource, money, resource. Where I think the solution is, you came to the country illegally. Okay, we're going to remove you. And where's the mercy? The mercy is shown in the millions that we haven't removed and the millions that will continue to be here.
I saw Trump say something that I thought was very interesting. He said, if you've come here, come tell us you've come here, and then we'll send you back. We'll buy you a plane ticket for you to go back. And then you can apply to come here legally. But if you don't come, we're going to get you and send you. Hey, let me just, hey, bro, can you stop with the all caps yelling at us?
Who is this?
Like, hey, mods, you guys need to be doing your job. So, like, it just got worse and worse and worse with the, it doesn't even make sense to me. Okay, but it makes sense why people want to come to America, Tom. Right?
Yeah, by the way, I agree with Blue's comment that was retracted.
What was retracted?
That's not this conversation, or not retracted, but muted or deleted.
Oh, the DEI hire. I didn't say mute them. I just said, okay, guys, don't block them.
Either way, yeah. So I get what you're saying, Art. Again, I like your stance on more. This is like a personal thing. For example, like I wonder if I were to, let's say, go to my local, I don't want to sound, let's say I know a person who's illegal, an illegal immigrant. Like, I'm not even saying I would walk around and call the cops on all the people I know who are illegal. Maybe I would try to shelter them. Maybe I would try to give them resources to fix the situation.
MJ's coming at you. I think he's coming at you. He says, hey, brother, I don't think you know how many Armenians have come to America BSing political asylum claims. Deport them too? I think that question is towards you.
Yeah, I don't know why. So funny thing with Armenians, is he Armenian?
I don't know.
So funny thing is you assume that the Armenian thing is going to like amp me up. Like, oh no, not the Armenians. Absolutely. If anyone is here illegally, if anyone broke the law, like a bunch of Armenians just got arrested for like, I don't know, fraud of like $80 million.
Yeah, it was what was it? It was the COVID money.
Yeah, like you're not going to get something with me like, oh, let me bring up the Armenians and then maybe he'll fold. Like, no, yes, they should be. People who, I mean, people who became citizens, regardless of what claim they make, they're citizens. So I would say no, they shouldn't have that stripped because they've been naturalized. They're citizens. So yeah, they got away with it. Maybe that was the mercy they needed. Maybe that was God's mercy on them. Okay, but there are also people who left legitimately. My family. And a lot of people left from Iran in different ways, some of them illegally. My family was persecuted religiously for being Christians, okay? So there was a process for us to seek asylum in another country. We did that legally, flew there, okay? Sought asylum, then worked with immigration judges in the United States to go through a process, okay, to go through multiple painstaking, anxiety-driven, panic-driven conversations with my family, my parents, us, okay, in those rooms, to eventually be given the right, okay, to enter the United States as legal citizens or as legal immigrants, okay, refugees. You could say legal immigrants, right?
I just got on a plane and came here.
Oh, there you go.
But it took us a long time.
Yeah, so it took so yeah, there are people who game the system, and some of them get away with it. Whatever.
I don't know when people say this stuff. I'm a very big fan, and so is Tom, of essentially assimilation into a culture. Like we love our ethnicity. We love being Armenian. I think whenever we're in situations where we can bless people, we do that. I think, we can like theologically speak about this, but I think God's look, it's not an accident that we are the ethnicities and nationalities that we are. I think that's God's plan. And I think there's a sacredness to that. And I think we can be a blessing to people. But don't bring or don't take your junk worldviews, bankrupt worldviews, into other societies that are well functioning and mess them up. This is not, like, that's just the wrong thing to do. And now, what I just said, some people might be like, oh, that seems pretty insensitive or something like that because you're talking about people's cultures. There are bad cultures out there. There are bad societies. I'll give you an example. Anyone that I know who grew up under communism, whether it was in Armenia, whether it was in Romania, whether it was, it doesn't matter. In the heart of, underneath Lenin's mausoleum, where his body is still decaying or whatever the heck is going on with that guy's body, mummified body. In the midst of that, everyone I know has some random justification as to why it's okay to steal from the government. That's crap ideology. Don't bring that into another society and say, no, it's okay to do this, it's okay to do that, because then you're going to kind of rot the system. That has been working and is the reason why you are in that country in the first place, because it's been working. So there are bad cultures. There are societies that haven't been formed well, and that's why they're not doing well. And even internally, when you go to those countries and you see the political conversations happening, they'll say that themselves. They'll say like, hey, no, we can't keep functioning like this because we're going to be left behind.
That's right. That's such a good point. Also, by the way, to bring it to the more current context of what's happening, like, explain to me, because I want to know, you're fighting ICE agents who are trying to deport you, who are here illegally, okay? You're fighting them to not go back to your country of origin, okay, where you're from, by waving flags of the country that you're from in opposition. By the way, not just waving, burning flags of the country you want to stay in. Okay, spitting on them, calling them out. Like throwing rocks at federal agents and stuff like that. Please explain to me. So if I want to be a Christian and I want to show mercy, right? I want to say, whoa, hang on.
By the way, this is why partly I think it's mob. Like there's people, not everyone. There are people, I think, who are paid agents doing this stuff, and they're instigating mob violence. It's some of that stuff. It doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot to get a riot going.
Yeah.
So they're always like masked up. It's weird. You can tell it's some like 21-year-old white guy that's like doing like really aggressive, violent things.
Yeah.
It's very suspicious to me. I saw one of the ICE leadership saying, I guess there's a bunch of issues about them wearing masks. And he said the reason why they're wearing masks is because people are taking pictures of them and they're going and doing research on their families, their kids, and all this stuff, and then putting it on the internet, their addresses and all this stuff. And he said these guys are just doing their jobs, which is it's very sad. Right now, I know somebody who's like an idealistic, whatever, bleeding heart liberal is gonna be like, they shouldn't be doing that job. Let them quit that job. I'm like, okay, man, go away. But it's interesting that it's to a point where these guys got it. They look. It looks bad. The optics of it looks really, really bad. They're masked man coming in there doing X, Y, and Z, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe they're showing videos of this stuff in China and saying, look, this is what America is. Remember during COVID when they were showing videos and saying, look at what China is? Maybe they're doing that in China. I don't know. Have you seen any comments that we should address? Because there's a bunch of stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, I saw one that said, does a community have the right to determine whether or not certain policies are beneficial for themselves? Yes, they do.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, they do. And on a federal level, okay, the federal government, they did. And that was, somebody came and said, I want to do mass deportations, okay? That's what they said. And they said it's going to be hard, it's going to be crazy. We knew that, okay? Because it's chaotic, it's over the top. Too many people have entered illegally, okay? And the people voted for that person to be president. So that was in a large community, being the United States, saying that we want to enforce our laws. By the way, we don't want to, no one said create new laws, or Donald Trump is going to come in and create new laws and be a dictator. No, the guy is enforcing the laws of the country that he's the president of, guys. He's enforcing the laws of his house. Now, there are people who don't enforce it, like the previous president. What happens there? You might call it grace and mercy, or it might reap chaos and havoc down the line in the future, right? So in my household, if I have a rule, right, like for my kids, and they break that rule and I enforce it, I'm justified. If I don't enforce it, maybe you can say I'm gracious. But if I'm constantly not enforcing the rules I have in my house, and my kids become disorderly, crazy, violent, right? Like psychopathic. And then somebody goes like, well, what's wrong with him? Like the rules were in his house. He just wasn't enforcing them. That's exactly kind of where we are right now. Like there are rules in this country. Don't give me there needs to be a pathway to citizenship. There is a pathway to citizenship. It's just more difficult than, running through a forest and entering the country. It is more difficult. But one thing that I saw an interview of a legal citizen, resident who came legally here. Now she was citizen, speaking art. And she said, these people who are coming here illegally are the reason why my process had to take 10 years of back and forth and back and forth, because the lawbreakers get in, right? And then the people who are trying to follow the law, well, it's going to take a long time for them. So I don't buy this argument that, there's like this dictator above us who's doing these things, and all of us are like, oh my God, show mercy, show grace. I see it more like, no, we have empowered the person who's actually leading us to actually do their job. And in the places where they succeed, we should applaud them. And in the places where they fail, we should criticize them. So explain to me, Arthur, did you vote for Donald Trump?
I did.
Okay. So what is he doing currently with this deportation stuff that you would say is in opposition of what you had in mind when you voted for him?
I think the way they're doing it, I think, is bad. Again, I think there's a valid argument you can make and say, well, what else? How else should they do it and stuff like that? I think he could have done a political maneuvering. Again, maybe I'm thinking politically here, kind of not systematically. What's the word? Strategically is what I'm thinking about. Where you say you're going to do a number of things. You're planning on pivoting on that essentially, where you get rid of the violent criminals and all the stuff that's going on. You sort of appease your base, and you say, "Look, we got rid of all these guys. We've cleaned up quite a bit. Here's what's going on." And then we think it's better if we go in this direction when it comes to individuals that have been here. Because, again, I think my predominant issue here is not limited to the last 4 years. Now, you're saying 10 million in the last 4 years. I don't know what that number is if you count it from like the year 2000, let's just say. Obviously, it's a larger number. And obviously, there's people that have been living here since the year 2000 that have come in illegally. And now you're looking at multiple, maybe even the 90s, where people came here under Clinton and stuff like that. I mean, these guys all deported around the same number of people. Like Biden deported, I don't know if you know this, but I was actually looking this up right now. Biden deported more people than Obama did in 8 years. I think Obama deported about 3 million people in 8 years. And Biden deported about 4 million. But that's partly because The Title 42 thing didn't exist under Obama, and it did under Biden. But also, Biden had the lowest deportation in ICE history in, when is it? In 2021, 59,000. Where when you're actually looking up these numbers, and then his presidency, it kept going up because I think they realized what a mess it was.
Yeah.
So 2021, they did 59,000. 2022, they did 72,000. 2023, they did 143,000. And in 2024, 271,000. Right. And so it should be a lot more than that, especially considering that it was the most amount of people coming into the country under his presidency. Regardless, because it's not just a short-term thing, and that's kind of what's bugging me in regards to my compassionate side, is, and not that I have a non-compassionate side, I'm just trying to think Christianly here, and I'm thinking about real people. I'm thinking about real individuals, and I get all the legal conversations, guys. Is that come up with something that looks better and works better than just ditching people. Maybe you're even going to come up with the rule that says, if you came in here the last 4 years, we're getting rid of you. Because like you said, there is no better way of doing this. You got to come up with some arbitrary kind of thing. Or, hey, if you came here in the last 10 years illegally, we're getting rid of you.
Yeah, but you're always going to fall into the same thing, right?
Yeah,
There's
of course,
always someone
of course.
that says, how about that family that just came in 2 years ago?
It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. There is no clean way of doing this. And maybe people are saying the clean way is just let them stay here. That's not a clean way of doing it either. Right? That's the equivalent of you telling your kids, hey man, there's a bunch of clothing on your bed. Fold it up and put it in your drawer. And then they go and put a blanket over it and they tuck it in and they go, I don't see it, so it's good.
Yeah.
That's the equivalent of it. Like, I get it. I understand that there's no kind of clean way of doing this. There really isn't. Partly because we've had incompetent leaders. And I'm talking generally speaking here. I'm talking Republicans and Democrats alike. There's been quite a bit of incompetence, carelessness when it comes to the border. People have come into this country that potentially are very dangerous individuals, and could, and maybe have, and maybe tried and were stopped, that you and I never heard about, and they came in through the southern border without anybody knowing. Like, I hope we're not naive enough to think that these things aren't happening in the background and it doesn't get televised and publicized. There are a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that never get publicized. Attacks on the United States predominantly, where they shut it down. Nobody finds out about it. Because if people were to find out about it, there'd be absolute chaos.
And like, by the way, laws, like upholding laws, can sometimes have real sensitive consequences. Like, when you see families being deported and the husband is kind of like there, the kids are in the background crying and the mom is being put into a truck and whatever. There's like nobody, regardless of legal status, law, whatever, nobody looks at that and goes like, oh my God, that's so amazing. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, right. I mean, there's like the Twitter trolls that do that, but none of us feel that way. Like, I don't look at that. But there's also like a consequence. Like, it's the same as like if I watch a video, like a police video, right, of a guy who just like was angry and I don't know, like smashed the window of a or smacked some guy on the street. Like, they got into an argument, but he's generally a good guy. He has his family, and this happens all the time, by guys, if you watch police videos. And the police come up behind him, and he's in there with his family, and they take him out of the car. The kids are crying, and then you got to go to jail and stuff. They put him in, like, it's very similar to that. Like, you can be separated from a loved one or a family member, whatever, when you're committing a crime. Now, I get that, Arthur, I get the sensitivity to that, because like illegal immigration or why people came here illegally, is clearly you wouldn't put it in the same category as someone like robbing a bank or fighting someone. It's a different category of crime, but it is crime. So your country needs to make a decision, right? Your country needs to say, are we willing to put up with this? Okay, and are we willing to like change some of our policies in order to fit more in line with justice and mercy that we desire, right?
Yeah.
Or are we saying as a community that we've done that, we've tried that, it doesn't work, and now we want to take care of it another way? And I think if you see Europe, Arthur, if you see Europe and some of these countries surrounding Europe and how it's changed, like politically it's shifting to the right, immigration is the number one reason. Like they have a different issue. Theirs is not like people like we're dealing with, but they're having an Islamic from Islamic countries and don't want to assimilate and all that kind of stuff. But this is what it's not just Americans dealing with this. It's just on a larger scale. But everyone's dealing with this.
Yeah, I agree with you. And again, there's an aspect of I don't care about political like talking points. It's just like people quote. Like I'll talk to people and they'll say the same thing to me, and I'm like, "You're not saying something I haven't heard." Like and often nobody's trying to solve the issue. They're just telling me what the problem is. We already know what the problem is. So it's easy to sit there like ideologically, and I get it because I've been 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old ideologue where I thought I had the solution to a bunch of social issues. And I realized the situation was a lot more complicated than I first thought, right? And like, give me solutions to this. And I'm not saying the solutions are going to be clean. And I'm not even against the idea that whatever's happening right now might be the solution to it. Because you could argue that it's a deterrent as well. Right, like I don't know what the border crossings have been over the last whatever.
Almost zero, like non-existent.
Because it's a deterrent.
Yes.
This is why in some Islamic countries they'll come up and be like, "We don't have any stealing in our country. It's okay. There's no stealing." And you're like, "What happens if somebody steals in your country? Oh, we just chop off his hand."
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, well, that's a pretty decent deterrent. People won't do it. I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying there's an aspect of strong deterrence. Like moving in strong on a thing could become a deterrent as well. But I don't want people to think they actually have the solution to this. Like in regards to like us armchair folks, right? We're trying to. I mean, we vote people in office that we would think are somewhat competent individuals that would do this. But there's like a lot of people that are complaining against it and they have no solution.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, okay, what would you do if you were the president and then you had people coming into like into a meeting with you? Because these are realistic things that happen. I think about these things. I was like, man, I'm sort of like, I'm glad I'm not in that position. And you get people reporting to you and they come in there and they say, "Sir, last month, we arrested 300 people that wanted to blow up different sites in the United States. They all came through illegally in our southern border." Like, you don't hear those conversations. I don't hear them, but he does. And then you ask questions of like, what is my responsibility towards? Am I just going to be, these people that are like trying to argue for like wide borders and stuff. Like when you actually look at their worldview, their entire worldview is bankrupt.
Yeah.
It's unrealistic what they want to do. And even some of the other stuff they believe just are nonsensical things that they believe. So it's complicated. I really want people to struggle with it. I struggle with it. And I hope you guys have seen in my, like even in this conversation Tom and I have had, is like I struggle with it because there's a human aspect to it. I think there's a pastoral aspect to it. I think like to say one thing that was said earlier on the stream is like, what if one of these people was in your congregation and a part of your church? Right? And then we can come up with any scenario and it exists. they were illegal, they became believers through the ministry your church was doing. You guys love them, and you guys have gotten close to them and all this stuff. And then now you think, they're like, if you're just going to sit there, like you were saying, if someone's going to look at them and just be like, well, this is good, the law's being followed, then you're not human, man. You have no emotions, no feelings, no connections. You can't just view people as this. And this is the problem maybe with the internet. Like, they put up these pictures and videos online of these things happening, and people are cheering and saying stuff. I'm like, bro, you're behind the screen. That's an actual individual. That's their family. Like, even if you think it's okay and right, you shouldn't be rejoicing over it. And I've been very consistent with this when it comes to, rejoicing over the downfall of evil people, even. I think we should have a very somber reaction to the downfall of even evil people.
Yeah.
Okay? I don't think the Bible calls us to rejoice over those things, especially if we have an overall biblical theology.
JR says, I don't really understand why Tom is attempting to nuance his arguments. Just say that you deserve to be deported in virtue of being there illegally and dodge the optical and compassion concerns. So, look, you could do that, but there's a couple of problems with it. One is a law can be a bad law or an immoral law. That's one way. That's why I try to nuance these things as much as I can. Two is that I don't think me living out my faith on a personal level requires me to uphold the law in that sense. Like, this is also a conversation about like Catholic priests who get confessionals of someone confessing some weird sin they have. It's like, does he report them and stuff like that? So I try to separate like how I view the government versus my personal responsibility, but I also try to look at the law. Like, is the law a just law? Like, it was law in the United States, it still is, to murder children in the womb, right? Mm-hmm. Is that a just law? It's like someone coming up to me, JR, and saying like, man, stop debating with Tom trying to like talk about the compassionate aspect of it. Tell him it's legal to abort children in the United States, and that's that. Boom, end of conversation. And then my response would be, well, it's legal, but is it moral? And I think that's the conversation here that Arthur's kind of trying to bring up. Is there a more loving Christian moral way to deal with immigrants now, illegal immigrants that have come through our border? If there is, show us how. My argument is that the laws we have in our books are just. I think America's insanely compassionate. Look at us, man. We're two immigrants former immigrants sitting here, and now we're
we're immigrants, bro.
Yeah,
we're former.
Somebody said, I think it was the LA mayor. She said, Los Angeles is a city of immigrants. It's like, hey, don't conflate the two. We're not a city of immigrants. We're a city of citizens. We were immigrants. We're citizens. And that has nothing to do with illegal immigrants. So that's kind of the way the left tries to bring this conversation, Arthur, is like to conflate immigrants in general with illegal immigrants crossing the border or coming here illegally. That's not the same. Okay, when we have that conversation, when I say illegal immigration, I'm not talking about your grandpa who's here with like a green card. That's not illegal immigration in what we're talking about.
Yeah, but Tom, I would even say maybe in years past, there was a different way to deal with illegal immigration than there is today.
Oh, for sure.
So, for example, if people were coming into the United States illegally in the 80s, maybe like the laws were a bit more relaxed and it was easier for them to become legalized and all these things, where it's a lot harder now. Again, these are the sorts of things where when you're looking at it historically, you different time periods and the different stuff happening in those time periods are going to make you react to things differently.
Yeah, of course.
That's just, again, common sense. I mean, what I said isn't like a brilliant sort of thing. It's just a reality.
Or even practically, I wonder if we were in like a crazy world war right now, and you had like thousands of American men, millions dying. Like, I wonder if the conversation would be different. Like, oh no, we need more people.
Oh, of course.
So you're right. There's and Jerome, to answer, like, if I don't think that way, like if I don't think that it's a bad law, why am I still trying to bring it in? Because people that I love might think it's a bad law. Like, if I have Christian brothers and sisters who disagree with the way the deportations are being done, let's say, or that they're being done at all, it's enough reason for me to nuance it and say, like, okay, could I potentially, giving thing to this title, could I potentially be on the wrong side of Jesus? Like, is that a possibility? And I could be on the wrong side of many things, but the one thing I don't want to be on the wrong side of is Jesus. Okay. Yeah. So if there's a possibility that I'm not being compassionate, I'm not being loving, or I've been too, I guess, taken over by political thought rather than my faith, that is a place that I should look at myself in the mirror, and every Christian should.
And I would say even like more of the reflective aspect of our faith and our relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
Is when you see people kind of being torn away from their livelihoods and stuff like that, and your heart doesn't go out with them, I think you're not close to Jesus. I'll give you an example. The other day I was driving near, I'm not going to say this.
It's going to be so
somewhere
hard.
Around Los Angeles. I was driving around, and there was a bunch of like these food tents set up. Okay. And then I thought, bro, what if like ICE just came and just raided this right now? Like, I kind of visualized it, Tom. Yeah. People panicking and, stuff being thrown around, obviously pushing and fighting and crying. And it wasn't even happening. I was just thinking about it. I was just visualizing. And I felt bad, right? Like, I wasn't happy over that.
Yeah.
Again, this I'm not talking about the legality of it now, you guys. I'm just talking about the human compassionate aspect of being a Christian individual that lives in a fallen world with sin and sinful things being done, whether it's by the government, the government, there's people who are doing sinful things, or whether it's just individuals who are just careless. Like, for example, individuals that are burning cars on the streets, and now I got to be worried about what it's going to look like for me to go somewhere. Is my family safe? Can I go to Tom's house? Or am I going to come across a burnt car on the freeway? Because, I don't know, some knuckleheads think that that's a good way to resist.
Yeah.
Those are the things that, like, I think about it. And again, there's multiple aspects of this. And one of the issues I've seen, and maybe I can kind of bring this around, some of the stuff I've seen is both on the left and the right side. Individuals that aren't actually feeling and going through this and experiencing it. All they're talking about is either the legality of it, or they're talking about just, like you said, toxic compassion.
Yeah.
Sorry. My wife is texting saying she has food for you. It's food you like.
Amazing. All right, guys, it's been nice. I agree with you. Look, I agree with you. Here's the thing. Like, it's the way I try to kind of redirect the attention of people who look at these situations and they go like, it's horrible, you're destroying people's lives, livelihood, family, art, is when I say, how are those people right now reacting? Like, I wonder if the people who are on the streets in Los Angeles, contextually that's happening right now, were waving American flags and holding signs up that say we love this land.
Yeah.
Don't throw us out. I wonder if a lot of people's reaction would be different than what they're doing right now, which is holding flags of their home countries, cussing at our officers. By the way, writing something like Azteca, I think, which is California belongs to, whoever it belonged to previously. Mm-hmm. So it's like it's not even like you want to stay here. You're saying this is ours. Like that's one that kind of reaction.
Yeah, there's another aspect of this, like you're saying, where like situations like this in California are very different than other places because of the history of California.
Yeah.
So it complicates matters.
Well, that's one. But then the other one, regardless of what city it's happening in, what the ethnic group is that's coming in, whatever it is, okay? They can be Armenian, guys, if that's the cap you want to throw at me. They can be Armenians. Whatever it is that are the people who are breaking the law, even if the law isn't the law you would consider like a terrible law that they're breaking, but is it straining the economics of a country, the health of a country, the law enforcement of a country, like people, the citizens who the government has been given a mandate from God to protect its citizenry, right? Is it actually affecting those people in a negative way? So if I can make the argument that, hey, listen, there is going to be some sad scenes when people are being removed from this country, but at the same time this is being done to make sure we have resources for American citizens who are currently, by the way, guys, how much have you heard on the news about the people dying of fentanyl? Have you seen some of those documentaries? Do you know how many thousands, do you know entire cities in the United States are being wiped off the map? Like you can drive through cities that have lost thousands of people to drug overdoses. Like, have you seen homelessness recently? Have you driven through some areas that are struggling with that kind of stuff? Like, do you know about the soldiers who are dealing with PTSD? Do you know how much of our society is dealing with anxiety and things like this, mental disorders, mental stuff? Like, there is enough, guys, happening in our country where I can say, yes, as a Christian, by the way, not as just a rando, as a Christian, I can look at the suffering of those, okay, who are around me and say, yes, I don't want any suffering. But if taking some steps, okay, legal steps can relieve some resources and allow my country to take care of those who I see struggling around me, my neighbors, my citizens, my fellow Americans, and to lift them up from whatever situation they're struggling with, I see that as being justified, even looking at this apart from just like black and white legal stuff of like caring for the people around you, caring for the citizens. So yeah, I think it's tough to look at art. It's not pleasant to look at. People are, forgive my language, a-holes if they look at a family like being separated and they're like, oh, America, I'm waving. Like, yeah, it's messed up. It doesn't always look good, but that's the thing. Cleaning up a messy situation is not always going to look good. It's going to be messy. Like you remove, and I don't want to... please understand, I'm not trying to be insensitive in the comparison, but like once you start cleaning stuff in your house, like removing things, like pulling your couch forward, looking under your bed, it's crazy. You're like, oh man, it was cleaner before I started. Why is it so messy now? Like it's worse in this cleanup process, but you got to start doing it to make your house look clean. And that's kind of what we're dealing with. And of course, we're dealing with people, we care, compassion, all that stuff, but you have to start somewhere. If you don't start somewhere and you just let it continue and continue because we're compassionate, because we're merciful, then you're going to create really big chaos for generations that are going to come after.
But by the way, MJ, the clarification you posted, I actually posted it on the screen. I know we didn't read it because we were in the middle of a conversation, but I posted it on the screen so people can read your clarification in regards to Armenians. I understand that you're not making a nonsense Armenian argument, so... Whew, take a breath. Take a breath.
Let's go.
Gevorg says, you guys are a breath of fresh air, bro. Bros. Not bro, bros. I really enjoy how you tackle sensitive topics with such grace. Proud to call you guys my brothers.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Did you answer would Jesus call ice yet?
Think put that. Nick Quint said, "Would Jesus call ice on himself?"
Oh.
Well, I understand that, of course, but you think that the laws are borderline impossible to be bad because of the history of your country. Your position forces you to a priori accept of the ICE raids. That's Jerome saying that to you.
Well, I understand that, of course, but you think that the laws are borderline impossible to be bad because of the history of your country? Your position forces you to be. I'm not understanding it. Can you explain this to me? I'm not an apologetics expert, so.
Yeah, Jerome could have worded this better. I think he's essentially saying, given the history and all the stuff that you know about the United States, it's sort of forcing you into having only one position about the law. Like you can't say no, they're bad laws.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think I can say there are bad laws. Like there are clearly bad laws.
No, specifically on this issue.
On this
specifically
issue.
on the immigration issue.
Yeah. So look, it's always tough on the Christian, man. And like I know you guys as Christians, you feel the pain. You have these conversations. Again, this is why I say toxic empathy, because you say something like, I want to save the life of unborn children. Someone will come up to you and be like, have you met a woman who's been raped? Have you met one? Have you been in a situation where you've had to sit across the table from someone who's been horrendously put in that situation? Do you know what she has to deal with? And like again, toxic empathy. It's like there are going to be situations that are going to be tough for Christians to respond, but there has to be some kind of orderly response we can give, which is, hey, we have to balance out compassion for people and also laws, but also compassion for people and compassion for people you don't consider people. Right? Like in the argument of abortion, it's like, you want me to have compassion for the mom that's been raped? Yes, I do. But you don't have compassion for the child that you're trying to kill in her womb, that you're trying to murder, by the way. Like, so there's an inconsistency when it comes to fake empathy, toxic empathy, right? And unfortunately from the left, Art, I see that much more, which is like, you care about the immigration issue, you're like, no, allow them all to come, but you don't say a word about the people that were murdered, the young girls that were murdered from illegal immigration. You don't say a word about the millions of babies that are being slaughtered. You don't say about a word about the families whose kids are being indoctrinated by crazy ideologies like sex cults. Like you don't actually care about people. You just care about the people
It's selective outrage.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is what I'm saying. Like, so I don't want to be that as a Christian.
Of course not.
I don't want to just like get into my clan and just like say the same stuff to each other, and then we're like, yeah, they are bad, yeah, like I don't want to be the person who only watches Fox News, and which I don't, by the way. I don't even watch Fox News, and all their opinions and their thoughts are shaped by either their own group. It's groupthink, essentially, right? Like you can have that happen in the conservative sense, you can have that happen in the liberal sense as well. It's the same things with the individual who just watches CNN and thinks like everything CNN says is, I don't know, the word of God. Like I want to be a Christian individual who is first and foremost committed to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and has a fair judgment that he makes about life, politics, existence, using the Word of God. And the cool thing about the Word of God is that the Word of God makes me uncomfortable, Tom. That God's Word doesn't agree with me. Right? Like there's things I do in life that the Word of God convicts me over and tells me I'm wrong in doing so. And so therefore I have to think more in line with what the Bible teaches rather than, my feelings and thoughts and X, Y, and Z. And somebody might be sitting there and goes, well, you don't have a mind of your own. No, that's not true. That's the influence on my life. And is anyone going to come and stand before me and say they don't have an influence in life? As they say in this, Tom? Do you see me? I'm not going to say whatever the word is that comes after that. You're a liar if that's what you think is going on. Or you're just like so blind to yourself and the influences in your life. Some people are like that.
there's a quote by Dietrich Bonhoeffer that says...
I just got a Bonhoeffer book. What book? Hang on. What book is it from?
I'm just reading a quote.
Yeah, where is it from? I'm going to fact check you.
I'm not sure about
Dietrich.
I just searched.
Oh, this is Bonhoeffer wrote a book called Life Together, a discussion of Christian fellowship.
So he says, politics is the art of the possible. I know you guys have heard this quote a million times. Mm-hmm. The art of the next best. The Christian, however, knows that in this world, the world of the possible, he must ask what is right and not what is expedient. Again, like our involvement in politics has to kind of it has to be guided or presided over by righteousness, not just like pragmatism.
Yes,
that's what makes it difficult to have these conversations, because yes, Jerome, I could say it's the law of the land. Get them all the heck out of here.
Yeah, and
I could be probably politically, legally, and all that stuff justified, but I worry how the person who's a non-Christian looking at me will go like, what the heck is this guy all about? Like, this guy claims to love Jesus. And again, that's where you kind of give inches and small room to the left to then say, hey, come on our side. Or by left, I mean, whatever, the non-Christian liberal, okay? To say like, come on our side. We'll give you all the compassion you need. Look at those Christians. They're so hateful. They don't care about their neighbor. Come on our side. We'll let all the illegal immigrants in, and then we'll teach their children that you can transition into different genders, and we'll ruin more people. And by the way, that's the thing that the left is actually not considering, that a lot of these people who come, especially from South America, they have very conservative, like, social views. Like, they're not going to be...
That's why I'm saying, bro... Yeah. Legalize them. I'm telling you.
Look, that
Republicans will not lose an election for the next 40 years.
That conversation can start, Art, and I think there is room for some kind of thing like that to start once everyone has agreed to shut the border.
Yeah.
Because if you let's take your solution, right? And Trump says, okay, for the next 4 years I'm president, I'm legalizing 500,000 illegal immigrants a year, and they can be legal citizens and work their way into citizenship, right? But the border's got to be shut down. Okay, and then 4 years later, that policy is in place of legalizing 500,000 people, and then the next president comes, he's a Democrat president, and he opens the borders.
So the thing is that this is why Ted Cruz was trying to get this done through Congress, because then the president can't really do that.
Yeah.
Because then you put it into law. And I don't care what anybody's opinion on Ted Cruz is. I think this is one of the smartest things that he's probably tried to do, and it got shut down, and I do not see why. And maybe I'm missing something here, right? We already have people in the country. They're here. Legalize them. You can even come up with a way of legalizing them that could be more fair. Like, you know how when the United States takes people in, they don't take obviously the whole million of them in from one country. They got to separate that. They go, this country gets this many, this country makes this many, and all this stuff. You can even do that with that internally. Like, hey, we're gonna do 500,000, but you get 30,000. You get 30,000. Like we want to be diverse in it, right? Like, we want to be welcoming to the world, and then you do that. There's ways that I think, again, it could be done. I don't see why it's not. I don't see why people aren't talking about it.
Look, it could be done, Art, but why should it be done? Like, if
you already accept, I would say because you already accept immigrants.
No, I know, but I'm saying maybe that's the problem. Maybe like it's too lenient on accepting people when the country, like the citizens of the country are, for example, like, when I lost my job, we didn't have health care. Mm-hmm. Okay. My wife's company was very expensive to have health care. Okay. So we had to go through a process of basically taking what my wife makes, what my situation at the time, and then we had to submit that to the government, and then they had to give us a specific amount that we had to pay to get the crappiest health care possible. Okay. So I have very crappy healthcare now. If something, God forbid, were to happen to me after working 12 years in a corporate world, making money, feeding into the system, I'm in a bad situation, right? So guys, pray nothing happens to me. But if I was an illegal immigrant who was in this country, and don't give me no, that's not true. Yes, it is. Yes, it is true. Look it up. If I was an illegal immigrant who came to this country, I would immediately be put into Medi-Cal, have all my expenses covered, have money coming in from the government, have programs set up to support me, have apps that can tell me where to go to pick up my food, right? So in that context where they're citizens of the country that are already struggling to make ends meet, struggling to keep up with, rising costs, rising taxes, rising inflation, thanks to the other goofball that was president for 4 years, right? If
rising taxes as well.
Yeah, whatever. All that stuff happening, right? Like, why is it our responsibility to now say our focus should be resolving illegal immigration by whatever, making 500,000 people? Why? Where I would say no, that could be a future thing, but our focus right now should be taking care of our citizens, like the people who are here in this country as citizens. Take care of them, because a lot of them are struggling. By the way, people think like the illegal immigrant people are struggling, and then our citizens are just like these like wealthy fat cows sitting there like, oh, we're not struggling at all, but we see all these struggling people, kick them out of here. That's not the case, man. A lot of people around me who are struggling, okay, including family members, are not like illegal immigrants. They're like citizens who are struggling to make ends meet. And I think the government should focus more on helping that kind of people.
I think there's just some good wisdom in that, in the sense that if we as a society become healthier and people are more successful and they're doing better, then you can actually welcome a lot more people. Let me just say another thing, that this whole caravan thing that was happening, and then Biden made statements about people rushing the border and all this stuff. Don't think there aren't people. Again, I said this about the riots, and I'll say this about, don't think there aren't people that want the United States to fall apart. Don't think that because of U.S. policies, and if they're bad policies, there aren't other countries and other countries that have bad intentions for the United States and want to crumble the U.S.'s power, influence in the world. And they'll use everything to do it. So if you're like, hey, we're going to accept everybody in, they'll get a bunch of people and they'll send them over here.
Yeah.
They're like, we know you guys are crap people. You guys can go ruin their country. Now, I don't know. I haven't done research on this. I don't know whether it was true that a bunch of people like from certain countries were like let out of prison and sent here or something like that.
Yeah, Trump likes to make that claim, but I don't think it's actually legitimate.
Yeah. But if you really, there's multiple ways to fight war. Again, just become a good student of history. For example, is the United States at war with Russia right now, Tom?
No. Well, if you're trying to make me answer your point, yes, in a way, yes.
Exactly my point. The United States is not at war with Russia. But the United States is at war with Russia in many, many ways. It's at war when it comes to economic sanctions. It's at war when it comes to supplying Ukraine. The Ukrainians are doing the fighting, right? And the opposite has happened. The opposite has happened where the United States was fighting, say, in Vietnam, and the communist Russians were essentially at war with the U.S., but they weren't really at war. But there's the whole information war now. It's stuff that's posted on the internet. We saw this with the whole Armenia-Azerbaijan situation, where the Azeris had all these bots online just spreading like nonsense. You remember that?
Yeah.
Just like you would put anything and there'd be like a bunch of Azeri bots in your comment section just saying stupid stuff. And so that's still war. If you can influence and integrate and go into a country and hurt it, there are people out there that will do it. And so I think the reason why I say that is because I think Christians just being naive and simplistic over like, hey, we love people, let's just let anyone come into the country because we love people, is exactly that. It's naive and simplistic. There needs to be wisdom that's employed by Christians, and there needs to be compassion. One of the things that bugs me, and I think the older I've gotten has bugged me, And it's ironic because I love truth. I love conversations about truth and reality and all that. Christians sometimes talk about truth too much. And don't act out or talk about compassion. And we sound so insensitive, and we look insensitive, and maybe we even act insensitive, even though I think the American church is probably the most generous church to ever exist when it comes to taking care of people across the world. Yeah, it's a proxy war. Yeah, in many ways, again, but that's what I'm saying. What do we only think Mexicans are coming into America through Mexico? Like, I don't know what the numbers are, but it might even not be.
Yeah,
like, it might be a minority.
Not even Mexicans. Yeah, definitely not.
It might just be a minority of Mexicans coming into the United States. I'm talking about Mexican nationals. Because there's a lot of people from just Central and South America.
Overseas.
Bro, I was watching a video and a majority of the people were Asian and Middle Eastern folks. Like, you barely saw any. And they were asking, like, they went up to these people. They're like, where are you from? He's like, I'm from China. India. China. India. Like, Asian. And, like, this doesn't become a part of the conversation. Where it's like, oh, and again, who are they? Why are they here? Like, these are questions the government worries about that you and I. Let me rephrase that. These are the questions the government has to worry about, so you and I don't. And so whenever people try to give some kind of a simplistic reaction to it, it's those guys, if they don't vet someone well, and he goes and blows up a building, and don't act like that hasn't happened or won't happen, then people are going to be like, oh, where was the failure? Let's figure out where the failure was. Well, they're trying to prevent it, and we complain about it. And again, it puts people in a very, very difficult place because they're trying to fix the situation. This is why I said what I said in the beginning. Everybody agrees on fixing the situation. The problem really is how to do it, do it best. And I think we have to be compassionate towards one another and actually listen to each other. This is why discourse matters. This is why Tom and I can sit there as friends, talk about this, and Tom's making points, and I'm like, wow, man, those are really good points. And maybe I made some points, and he's like, wow, those are decent points. But the way that you deal with this is not by going on the roads and burning cars and spitting on American flags and burning American flags. That's going to make people, just the reality of human affairs, that's going to make people dislike you even more, and they're not going to want to have anything to do with you because you're acting in that way. You're not helping your cause.
That's right.
I don't care what ethnicity, what nationality you are. I've said that, and I'll say that to any Armenian who's acted in ways like that. And I said, that's why you're unliked.
Yeah.
You're giving the rest of us.
Also, yeah, don't bring up like I'm not saying people here are, but just generally, like, this has nothing to do with ethnicity. For me, it genuinely doesn't. Like, I don't care that the situation right now is Mexicans, or I don't care if it was like some other Canadian, whatever, especially not the Canadians. Keep them completely out. But I don't care what they look like.
Except Wes Huff.
Yeah, except him. Let him. What their skin color is, whatever, like that. That's not the point. Is my argument is that people in our country are struggling, and we should take care of them before we think about people on the outside. Now, if let's say, Arthur, everything was well, right, and then now we're like trying to figure out an immigration system where we bring in 1 million people a year because now we've taken care of our country. Then, oh man, then it's a completely different conversation.
Correct.
Because that's when it would actually matter. Like, okay, yes, I do think there's a difference between bringing in 500,000 people from Poland versus 500,000 people from, let's say, like, I don't know, Pakistan or Afghanistan or whatever. Then it would make a difference. Assimilation. So it's not like, oh, just because they're white. No, I'm not white. Do I look white to you? No, it's because, like, there's assimilation. There's like, will that culture that's coming in be accepting of the United States and fall in line with some. You can keep your culture. Obviously, we're Armenians. We keep our culture. But is there some level of assimilation, love for country, or is your ideology, your initial ideology, i.e. England and France, is your initial ideology, it's like, oh, we want to come into that country because our country's so bad, and then we want to make that country like our bad country, so that we can live in that bad country again that's now like our previous bad country. So it's like there are layers to immigration. It's not just like a one and done issue.
Let me tell you something. So, and I know Eddie well. So I'm going to come at him here with, hey, brother. Very simply put, you can't ever miss the fact, I guess, of what the Bible says when it says God raises nations and puts nations down. He raises up kings and puts kings down. I think there's a. Let me put it this way. If a Christian individual doesn't want to be around people of a certain whatever worldview, ethnicity, and this and that, it is very much like God for him to bring those exact same people and put them next to you. So you can reach them. So you can share the gospel with them. I can't go to Pakistan and share the gospel with them. And this is another layer to this conversation, Tom. The theological sort of layer.
Yes.
There's a lot of places I can't go in the world and share the gospel with. Praise God, we can do this on YouTube and people from all across the world can watch it. Big shout out to all the people in England because they really need the gospel over there, and also Australia. But if God brings them and puts them next to me, now I can share the gospel with them. Let's not be resistant, because some of this stuff, we're too quickly resistant to it, and some of it might be God's doing. I'm not saying it is God's doing.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm saying it could be God's doing. If I can't reach the Pakistani in Pakistan, but next thing he's next to me and I can share the gospel with him, God's brought him to me.
Yeah. And again, that's not to say there's a religious test, by the way. It's like, if you're Muslim, you can't come to it. But America should be, again, when we're talking about America, right? America should be in a situation where the people it's bringing in, regardless of what country they're from, what religion they have, they're able to vet them and know what their ideology is, why they want to come here. If you're not in that position, don't open your borders. If you complain that you don't have enough judges and stuff to look at these cases, don't let that many people in. Bring in people that you have enough resources for.
Yeah, this is good. Buddy made this comment earlier. He was talking about, like, I think this is in response to, like, if people were like, we love America, if they were protesting in that way, we love America, we want to stay here. I think that will perk the conscience of the country a lot more. And he's talking about MLK and Gandhi here in regards to their nonviolent stuff. Bro, seriously, if people actually came out with that kind of it's very hard grabbing, pushing, and pulling and dragging people through to see that as a society. If people are saying, we love this country.
Yeah. Definitely.
They're wearing American flags and American hats, and they're saying we want to be here. We love this country. We want to invest and raise our children and bless this country. It's just, again, this is why I think there's bad actors involved into this stuff, and I wouldn't be surprised that they're foreign bad actors as well as foreign or domestic enemies.
Also, I wonder how many of these people, like, ideologically to the left, that are supporting illegal immigration would actually do anything about it personally themselves. There was a video about a guy who went like, can you do you think we should house illegal immigrants? And the person's like, yeah, we should bring him. And he brings some random dude, and he's like, okay, he's an illegal immigrant, can you take him to his house? And she was like, well, I can't do that right now, like I have kids and stuff. And then it's like the whole irony of it, right? Yeah. But I think here's the thing, Arthur. I think that the left or left-leaning people in our country, in American context, they want the government to do things that they don't want to do themselves, that are compassionate. So they want the government to be the compassionate person, but in their lives they don't want to be compassionate. And on the right-wing side, on the more conservative end, I think we call out the government for doing certain things, and then saying there's a better way, but we don't do those things the way we think is better. I know that was kind of long, but it's like if you believe in, let's say, certain things that we should be compassionate in, and you're like, I don't want the government involved in that stuff,
then do it.
Then do it. Then become compassionate in those areas, and let that reflect. Like, oh, a bunch of Christians are doing this, right? And for the left, well, you stink anyways. But honestly, like, you want the government to do things, like you think there's this like moral thing about the way you can do things with the government, but man, you don't live that life yourself 1%. You don't stand for any of those virtues if somebody looks at your life fully. And I'm generalizing, but I can, honestly, because I live in America, I can generalize it to an extent. And so that's the problem. It's like, as Christians, this is a Christian channel, right, Art? So as Christians, like, let's become the people in society, the kinds of people that even in these toxic empathy situations, people can't, like, if someone points and says, look at all these conservatives standing for deportations, and one of them being Arthur, that hateful bigot. And then you have a bunch of people like, what? No, we know this guy. He's not a hateful bigot. His neighbors are some of the people you're talking about with. He's friends with some of the people you're talking about with. He does this with some of the people. So, like, that changes the conversation.
That's right.
As you do that.
Yeah. I think that's very important, because then, again, you're kind of putting a nice bow on this whole conversation, that let's not be hypocrites. And that's, the Bible calls us to love our neighbors. The Bible calls us to honor and respect people's humanity and dignity. Again, this is what bothers me about the political conversations, where I'll see Christians who just like, it's like they don't even care about what the Bible says.
Yeah.
All they do is quote what some politician's saying, or what the talking points are, or whatever, like that. You know, like, again, I don't know the amount of times I've heard in the last like week or two people telling me that coming into the country is illegal. Like, I know. I'm not an idiot. I know. And like, they're talking to me and they know me. Right? People know me and they're telling me this. I'm like what you want me to be surprised? Like, wow, I didn't know that. Man. You're right. I just found out. Send them away. Like, obviously I know that. That's such a surface level conversation, in my opinion, where you're not taking into consideration these principles that are laid out in Scripture. The Bible has things to say about immigrants, you guys. It doesn't use immigrant language because that word didn't exist, but it uses language like we were talking about. It uses language as like the stranger or the sojourner or the alien in your land. Like, think the way God tells the Israelites to take care of the sojourners in Israel. And the reason why they're supposed to take care of them, it says, because you were once a sojourner in Egypt. You were aliens in Egypt, so take care of the aliens in your land. Now, I know the left like quotes this stuff and talks about borders as though like, oh, Jesus went to Egypt.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at them now, like, do you realize the Roman government owned all of that? Like, they're still in the same land. And even for those countries who aren't, they just didn't do borders the way you and I understand borders today. And they didn't get social benefits and all this other stuff. Like, it's such a simplistic conversation when people throw that stuff my way. Again, from the left and the right, you get it, right? I know in joking there was a comment made about whether Jesus would call ICE on himself. Well, he wouldn't have to. You know why? Because ICE wouldn't exist, and border laws the way we have in the United States wouldn't exist. So,
yeah, I mean, we're talking about fallible governments, fallible people, and like, none of these governments, even the U.S. government, as good as it can get, you know, as we strive for it to get, can fully bring about God's kingdom. Like, they're separate things, but as Christians, we're supposed to somehow live in the tension between the two, of not fully retreating either, right? Because there's Christians that are like, no, just fully retreat. Like, if it's got to go to crap, let it go to crap. But like, that's not That's what makes it different. If I wanted to live like that, by the way, if I want to say, you know what, I'm a believer, I don't care about this politics stuff. Politics doesn't interest me. I'm just going to do whatever I want to do for the kingdom of God and move it forward. You don't realize like the ramifications and the consequences and the things that could come from that kind of attitude.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, I have the right to just be a Christian, but I have no idea how I got that right. Like, I have no understanding of why I have that ability to have that right to just be a Christian, not care about politics.
Yeah, you know, people generally, I've said this and been called out on it before, but I'll say it anyways. Generally speaking, people who make those kinds of comments are people who've had it pretty decent for themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We good on this?
We good.
Hey, we've had a pretty consistent 30 some odd people. Somebody said Tom brings the numbers up. They might have been talking about your good looks and your good charm or something like that.
Maybe my Disney shirt. Did you guys see my Disney shirt?
Bro,
he clowned on me when I walked in.
Show that. Do not show
Mickey
that.
Mouse.
It might also be that when Tom's here, we talk about subjects that I don't usually talk about. And that's intentional, everybody. We intentionally talk about stuff that's different than the things I talk about when I'm on the channel. So, Tom, thanks for bringing the numbers up, man. We are on our way to, where are we on our way to? Let me see. Not physically, I'm just talking about. We are at 8,810 subscribers. We're on our way to 9,000 subscribers and hopefully 10,000 subscribers. The goal is to hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Now, with that said, there's a link for a free 60-day Logos trial package you can get. It's in the description box, or you can go to logos.com/Apologia Center. Also, I'm changing the Bible study hours. I was doing them on Thursday mornings. It didn't get traction as much as I would. It seems like people are at work and stuff. So one of the things I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to do a 6 p.m. Bible study. It's not going to be long. I'm going to go for max an hour and 15 minutes. But I'm going to try to be done in 45 minutes. And maybe a couple of conversations, and then we're done. 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The only way you can access that, let me get Tom out of here, because the only way you can access that is if you are on Patreon. You don't have to be a paid member to be on Patreon to access that. You can be a free member on Patreon and access all the Bible studies. For other things, you have to be paid on Patreon. But for the Bible studies, it's free. So if you're interested in the Ecclesiastes Bible studies, go on Patreon. Check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. We have up to like chapter 5 done, and then we're continuing with that. So all the videos are uploaded. You can go check it out. Tom, you want to say any final words?
God bless America, man. I don't know what to say. I would say, I will say some final words, because these convos can be a little all over the place, hectic. I would say, deal with this stuff as Christians, especially as Christians. Like, don't fear to. I know we get worried in like cancel culture, like if we give our opinion and there's people that might be hurt, but we got to deal with these things. As a Christian, you should attempt to be a voice in society when these kind of things are happening, right? You shouldn't cower away. You shouldn't be like, oh, I might sound insensitive, but you should also do it in the way my brother said, like be loving about it, be compassionate. Remember that we're dealing with like fallible people and fallible governments and people who are not perfect. So there's room for clarification and change and hearts being changed. And ultimately, I would say that I'm comforted knowing that Christ is king, that he's in control, and that hopefully he's reforming our hearts each day to be more like him, even in these political things.
Amen to that. Government is not meant to take the place of God or the promises that God has. One of the issues that people have in life is thinking and putting their hope and trust in government. And as Tom said, those are fallible people. And the systems we are fallible because fallible people are developing the fallible systems. So make sure you get your priorities properly set out, or else you will be disappointed and you're just going to be depressed in life. So with all that said, thanks for hanging out with us today, this Monday. heavy subject, but hopefully it's caused you, I don't care what side you're on, but it's caused you to think a little bit deeper on these important matters. So with all that said, God bless you. Take care. And I will see you later.